Today, as we celebrate this fourth Sunday in Lent, we are called to reflect upon the times when we are in the depths. And we are called to reflect upon God's presence and salvation and help in the midst of times of darkness. The people of Israel are the people of the covenant, and we are the continuation of that covenant. Today, in the first reading from the book of Chronicles, we hear about a time when the people of Israel, after having been saved from their slavery in Egypt, after having traveled through the desert, after having had a time of great prosperity, where they developed their culture, they developed their temple, and they worshiped their God in peace and in happiness and in joy. But during that time of peace and happiness and joy, there were times in which they began to forget about the goodness of God and how God had brought them out. And had God had brought them to the place where they were, in the place where they had this firm foundation. And the prophets continued to preach to them. Remember from which you came. Remember who brought you to this place. Remember who sustains you. The Lord your God, Yahweh, the one who has promised to be with you and give you all that you need to sustain you. That he only asks you to love him and to worship him. But we know, as the story goes on, that many times in that time when we're in those places of comfort, we allow other things to take front and center. We allow other things to become God for us. We allow other things to separate us from the love of God. And because of this separation that these Israelites experienced, they saw another period of downturn, another period of slavery, another period of persecution. The Babylonians came into their territory, wiped out their culture, destroyed their temple, and took them into slavery out of that land of promise that was given to them, that was promised to them, they were led to by Moses. And in that captivity, they suffered for over 60 years. And then they began to reflect upon the goodness of God and what God had done for them in history. But as we know, as always, God is always present. It is not anything that we do, but by grace, God protects and guides us if only we trust, if only we accept, and if only we say yes to his will, to his word, and to his presence in our lives. And when they accepted God's gift of grace, and they turned back from their sinful ways, and they turned back to their need for God, the captivity came to an end. The Persians came in and destroyed the Babylonians. And the new leader of the Persians who came in and destroyed the Babylonians allowed the Jewish people, the Israelites, to return to their land. But not only allowed them, God spoke to this man, Cyrus, their leader, and said, go back to your land. God has told me that he wants you to go back to where he had set up for you and rebuild the temple. And don't forget about me. Even though I'm not of your people, you go back, rebuild your temple, and continue to praise your God, and continue to accept his gifts of love and peace and grace in your lives, and never forget. And they were released from their bondage. Each of us in our day, each of us in our lifetime, have those periods, those times in which we go to the valley. Those times when we feel enslaved by the bad things of life. Those times when we thought that we were at the top of our game, when we had everything we needed, and it's taken away from us. Those times when we had that perfect position or perfect job that we thought would never end. And God humbles us and allows that to be taken away from us. The time when we've met that person that we've loved, either a loved one that has become our spouse, or a friend, a special friend who has come into our lives and has made us so very happy. And for some reason, that person or that relationship begins to become less than what it was. And we draw into a period of darkness. When we have been in a situation in which we feel that, we have everything that we need. We have the money, we have cars, we've been selected to go to the college of our choice. But there are obstacles in the way. And we feel sorry for them when we don't get our way. When God has seemingly let us fall to our knees, fall flat on our face. But it is in those times of despair, it is in those times of darkness, it is in those times where we feel that we are alone and that we do not have any place to turn, that we must continue to remember in our hearts and in our minds that we must turn to God. Because we know that God will bring us through it. Sometimes God has to bring us to an event or to our needs and bring us through that event for Him to bring us to the place we are called to be. Christ is the example. He brought Him to the cross. He brought Him to that moment where He was about to despair. But He did not despair. He trusted in the love of God and the grace of God. And by bringing Him to that moment, He brought salvation and resurrection and life to the world. So remember during this time of Lent, as we reflect upon those moments of darkness, those moments where we feel that we have just hit rock bottom, that God is truly present. And God guides and directs us and will lead us through it. As I was reflecting and preparing for today's Mass, and those who were here Saturday know that I reflected upon this in a very similar way, but I too, during this season of Lent, as I've been reflecting, have had some times where I've been a little bit down recently. But over the past week, a couple of things have happened where God has continued to say, Martin, I'm in charge, and I will bring you through it. He has placed people in my life and in my heart and in my day to allow me to not wallow in my sorrow, but to remember that He is in charge and He will bring me to where I need to go in the end. One of those just happened today. As I walked into this chapel and I see 3 people whose marriages I was a part of, the Lord touched my heart. What a blessing that you were here to give me strength. And I see a baby who was baptized here. What a blessing for the Lord to give to me and to give to this church. We must remember that it is God's grace, only God's grace, that we have to put trust in, not in any human being. Human beings can help us along the way, but God will lead us through it and to it. Trust in God. Trust in the cross. Trust in how God has prepared you and is welcoming you and is leading you to salvation, because God will not let you down. Ever present, always with us, as a sign of faith, hope, and love for all ends, for all of us, this day